Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my belated Victober 2021 video. Victober is a booktube tradition, a readathon, that calls upon participants to read Victorian literature in the month of October. It's run by Katie from Books and Things, Kate Howe, and Lucy the Reader, and I'll link to one of their videos down below. Each year they think up specific challenges, but anyone who reads any Victorian literature can claim the Victober badge. So that's what I did. In fact, I went ahead and I read the first three works that were published by Elizabeth Gaskell, because I'd read some Elizabeth Gaskell in college, but it's been a while. And I was thinking I could now go through all of her novels or novel-length works and add them to my author backlist playlist. So here we go. So the first book I read was Mary Barton. This is a book about employer and employee relationships, the industrial age, and murder. We're following, the eponymous character, Mary Barton. Her father is a man who is very against factory work, and we can kind of understand why. We see that factories are very dangerous places. We see a fire. We also see workers who are destitute and dying and not really getting the care and attention that they need from their employers. And yet, Mary, our main character, is wooed by the son of one of these owners. And it takes her a little while to realize that she should spend her affections instead upon a stalwart and honest childhood friend named Jem instead of this other guy. Also, Mary's father joins a trade union which clashes with the owners, and it's shortly after all of this that Mary's old beau ends up murdered. And the crime is pinned on Jem, because first of all, his gun is found at the scene of the crime, and secondly, sometime earlier, the two men were seen publicly fighting over Mary. But Mary finds some evidence that can clear Jem's name, but can she get all the pieces together in time for the trial? Dun dun dun! Of course, she is a woman living in the 19th century, so there's very little chance she'll end up being a lawyer. But she takes part in a very exciting boat chase scene, so maybe she could be part of a Victorian CSI. Anywho, I like this one overall. In fact, I think it's probably my favorite of the three. There's an intriguing socio-political plot, intriguing personal characters with personal journeys. Granted, their journeys and their desires hew very close to Victorian conventionality, but at least in so doing, everyone is proactive and thoughtful. It's compelling stuff. Sad to say, I kind of feel the opposite of compelled by the second book, Cranford. This is really more of a series of interconnected short stories. Gaskell is trying to bring to life an eccentric, old-timey, and very predominantly female society in a small town called Cranford. We follow our protagonist, Mary Smith, to a variety of events, and she's profiling different people. It's all kind of random until we come across Miss Maddie Jenkins. She has definitely the biggest character arc as divided through several stories where she's the protagonist. And then once you locate her, this does have more of a heart and I got more invested in the story. But, as an overall piece, I kind of found it to be underwhelming. And finally, I just finished Ruth. This is a more streamlined narrative again, well, technically speaking. It is a Victorian novel, so there's a lot more side characters and side plots than we're generally used to in contemporary fiction. And speaking of those conventional norms of the Victorian age, they often seem cruel in today's day and age. Take Ruth, the protagonist of this story, a lonely, orphaned 15-year-old girl oft discarded by those around her, who falls for the seductions of an older man. When she's cast out of her home, he promises to take care of her, but instead he basically impregnates her and leaves. According to Victorian norms, Ruth committed a wanton sin and should basically go throughout the rest of her life with a red scarlet A on her forehead forever. Luckily, Ruth finds some people who, if they don't believe in the concepts of grooming and sexual assault, at least believe in the concept of redemption. They take Ruth's sin as a one-time mistake and believe that with loving kindness she can grow to become a better person. But will the rest of their society agree? This was a dramatic tale by way of Ruth often being in a state of psychological crisis. Victorian society seems to love a demure and subservient woman, but I think that Ruth cried a bit much even for these people. Then we get someone basically on the opposite side of the spectrum, Ruth's friend Jamima, who is relatively outspoken and talkative for a young woman. It seems like her fate is to be chained to a man who is constantly patronizing her, although I do have to say by the time they finally do get married, they seem to bond over some empathy, so there's that. Basically what I'm saying is I really wouldn't want to live in this world, although upon finishing the book, I do think that most of the characters do come to some sense of empathy, as I was saying, so that makes them more redeemable in my eyes. What's most important to me is that Ruth has more dimension than just the fallen woman. She is able to lead a good and full life, although if anything, that makes the end of this novel even more depressing and disappointing. I'm not sure why I'm not spoiling the end of the novel. It is over 100 years old after all. But if you'd like to read more of my detailed thoughts on any of these 3 books, I'll link to my Goodreads reviews down below. So that about covers it for me now. Woo! I feel so relieved to finally have Victober and October stuff behind me as I'm barreling into November here. Of course, NaNoWriMo is the big thing on my plate, and speaking of such, I hope to have my first Nano vlog for 2021 up on this channel imminently, so stay tuned. In the meantime, everyone, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.